please. Keep going.
We good?
Yes, sir.
All right. Good evening. Welcome to the City of Bellevue, Idaho Common Council meeting for Monday, July 22nd, 2024. It is 5:31 and we'll go ahead and start the meeting. Please mute your call. If you're on Zoom, please keep your microphone muted until you raise your hand or are called upon. Please friendly reminder, please turn off all cell phones except for emergency personnel inside City Hall. Can we get our roll call, please?
Mayor Johnson?
Yes.
President Giordano?
Yes.
Member Guerrero?
Yes.
Member Leahy?
Yes.
Member Mahoney?
Yes.
Member Obanoff? Yes. Member Shea?
Yes.
Thank you. Finding out the regular meeting notice and agenda were posted in accordance with Idaho Code 74-204 within 48 hours prior to the meeting at Bellevue City Hall, Post Office, and the city's website on July 18, 2024.
I move that the notice for the July 22, 2024 regular meeting was completed in accordance with Idaho Code Section 74-204.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
All right. Call for conflicts outlined in Idaho Code 74-404. Anybody have any conflicts with the agenda, council?
No.
No, I do not.
Thank you. All right, we're going to start off a little bit different order tonight, but we'll work with it. Item number 3, wastewater facility plan update, dated June 30th, 2023, plan and study and environmental document. So this was an item. Before we go into public comment on this, I'll give you a little feedback where we're at. This was an item that was brought before us with the previous mayor. Between Idaho DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, we were required to have a facility plan updated. They're due every 5 years, and we were behind on it. So we asked Keller and Associates to give us an updated plan. It was done back in March of 2023. The previous mayor did not bring it to the council. There was some discussion on it prior to that date, and just kind of got sideboarded. But that grant was paid for through a DEQ grant, and so to meet the terms of the grant, we needed to hold a public comment, do our environmental assessment, and approve the facility plan. That will give us a facility plan that we can work with if we want to. It is my intention that we approve the facility plan, but do not approve any of the action items that are recommendations. As we are going through an update on the plan right now where we're doing assessment since it's not currently working. The recommended alternatives don't really meet what we need to be evaluating right now. The plant is currently working just fine on the lagoon system. We've had to do some treatment techniques to reduce some of the odor. We're oxygenating up at the main lift station, which has helped dramatically. And I was just down there this last week on Wednesday, and there was no odor at all. There's healthy life that are showing up in the RI basins and on the ponds. There's yeast, ducks, and everything moving around, and it's looking like a healthy lagoon system right now. Outside of that, we're waiting for ICRIM to assess our claim on the funds for the insurance claim to get the plant back on operation. We're almost done with all the estimates, finalizing the cost to replace some of the electrical services in there. And then we can move forward with testing some of the pumps, motors, and getting it back online. I don't have a definitive timeline right now when we could be operational again, but we are being hopeful that we'll have a good assessment here in the fall and be able to do at least some partial operations maybe by November. Any questions, council? Okay. At this time, I'll open it up for public comment. Seeing no one in the gallery and no one online at this time, I'll go ahead and close public comment.
So are we just, would the motion just be to approve the City of Bellevue wastewater plant facility plan update dated June 30, 2023,
And environmental document.
and environmental document?
So, and I can provide some clarification. I'm Andrew with Great West Engineering. How it works with DEQ is you can't do any facility upgrades on a system unless you have an approved facility plan, which is what this process is. But by quote approving the facility plan, that doesn't marry you to any of the decisions in the plan. So you can say, yep, we're going to approve it as written, but you can turn around in 2 weeks and say, that doesn't meet our needs anymore, and write like a 3-page addendum and move forward with a different project. So it doesn't, if you approve the document as written with, because there are recommendations, that doesn't mean you have to do them. And you can change your mind and change the order and refocus at any time, but if you don't have the base report, you can't go to the next step of, because any design project has a much higher level design report that's required. And this is just a big aerial view of big picture. There's some issues, but you can always redirect your focus later. So that might help. It's not marrying you to any decisions or any recommendations. It's just checking that first box to keep going
Okay,
down the road.
so with the, like, for example, with the restrictions with, DEQ, we had to do something by such date. There's not that requirement for the grant from DEQ for this?
So, no, so this grant just paid for this, the study. that we did.
Got it, okay.
And that's all it did. The cast, what we're doing with the water system, there are time marks that we had to meet X, Y, and Z. And so, and it's called, what's the cast stand for again, Andrew?
Compliance agreement schedule, so it's a voluntary agreement to keep yourself out of legal trouble.
Okay.
That's the best way to look at this.
Anyone?
And just, so we're just putting all of this on the table until a further date then of their recommendations, if everything's running as it should be.
These recommendations, there are things that we can look at first in the future, but we have moved away from Keller and we've moved to Great West, and there's gonna be other things. And so this gets us a facility plan that is certified by DEQ. And then, as Andrew said, we can make adjustments and we can go in the direction that we want to and get public feedback on the direction that we're going, how we're spending the money. It allows us to be more transparent instead of saying, we're using this document and this document only.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for the clarification.
There, I'm ready to move if you are, if anyone else is. I would move to approve the City of Bellevue wastewater facility plan and environmental update dated June 30, 2023.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Giovanni,
Yes.
member Correa,
Yes.
member Ovina,
Yes.
member Shea,
Yes.
member Mahoney,
Yes.
member Leahy.
Yes.
Do we need to make a motion on item B about delaying any considerations on the plan or?
Delaying considerations? No, sure, you don't need to make a motion to do something negative, just positive things.
So, moving to item number 4, public comment for items not on the agenda. Please be polite, courteous, and keep your comments 3 to 5 minutes. State your name and address for the record. Yes, sir, Tom.
Let me start with a question, and then I may or may not go further, but I'm interested particularly in making comments on something on the agenda, but I don't know whether you will be taking comments on it, and that would be the Stray 161 acres. I have some history and a few items that I think may be of interest as you contemplate this and think about moving forward. But if you're not taking comments, then I would love to give them now. But that's not how you're set up to do things. So I'm not sure
there isn't documented, it doesn't say public comment period, but this is just a discussion to open up the gateway to this, so, we'll take public comment during that time.
Then I have nothing now.
Any other items of concern not on the agenda? All right, at this time, I'll go ahead and close public comment for items not on concern. Item number 5, park fees, request for a fee waiver and or reduction of fee for the Memorial Park. A consideration of fee waiver and reduction for the fees of Memorial Park of $680 for September 1 and September 2nd for the Bellevue Labor Day celebration. So this is our city event. It brings in a lot of traffic. It highlights what we've trying to bring our community together. It is the biggest event that we do host at the park every year. Any questions, comments, concerns?
I'll just comment. I think that we've been setting a precedent lately that private events, even though they are in support of the city of Bellevue, should pay private event fees for use of the park. And while this is considered a city of Bellevue event, it is a private group that puts on the event and retains the earnings from the event. And so I love this event. I love to see it happening, but this isn't an event that Bellevue, the city of Bellevue directly puts on. And so, we've seen the events committee put on an event, which again is an outside group that's not part of the city of Bellevue, and we charged park fees for that event. So I think that private events using city facilities, even if the city of Bellevue is benefiting from it coming into our city, I think it's important to set a precedent to charge fees for these events.
There's history.
I do, and I think that the history is important, but
Luckily, for the last 2 years, we've got some great people supporting us.
yeah,
But still, everything we pay for costs money. And some years we lose money, some years we make money. It all stays in the same account. So in case we make good money this year, next year we have a head start. But and next year could be a disco year and we keep losing money. So I'm not gonna support this.
yeah, I mean, I totally understand the history of it, but I get the value of it, but historically, there was more city management involvement. And I completely appreciate the private group that has taken this event on. And I clearly understand how events make money and lose money from year to year. I think there are private fees that are charged that hopefully would cover some of the fees, but that's just, knowing that fees are a big part of how we need to keep money going into the city. That's just my opinion. So I'm hoping to hear from other people on council.
Well, I have a concern about the entire fee. And I do understand the history. But there have been years that I have been there, not just me, Mike and Jane Flynn, lots of other volunteers that didn't volunteer to do the cleanup. But from all the candy that gets thrown at the parade on Main Street, there is micro trash and there are thousands of candy wrappers in that grass. And I think that there's some fee that should be charged to make sure the city is covered, that our buildings and grounds crew are covered in that cleanup portion.
Yeah, I'm not gonna deny that with overtime, with the number of employees that we have to bring on to set up the parade, the number of staff we have to bring on to enforce, yeah. I don't even know how many alcohol related citations did you give out last year?
Last year was significant.
So, and that ups our costs. I do get this.
Yeah, I mean, it's 1,000 people and the impacts on our park and what are we at right now? For park rental fees, we're at around 2,400 and what it costs to maintain our parks per year. I mean, I believe in the cause, I'm for the cause. I'm also on the other hand and behind the Bellevue Events Committee and trying to figure out like, how do we get everybody involved and to pay for this? Because we can't do it for free anymore. I mean, that's been part of our problem is there's been so many shortcuts. So I think it's, the event is really important, but like maybe it's like one of us figuring out like, okay, how do we raise money or reach out to local businesses to fund that? Or
Last year, and my 75-year-old mother-in-law, cleaning up the park next day by herself. So it was, limited. The city, Casey, eventually came through and they helped out and did wonders. But it was not a lot of people. Volunteers are not very deep. We have people to help do the bar and do the music and to pay them. And maybe this year if it turns out good, if we could a good city presence, we'll ship money in. That's what I think we could do. But I'm not gonna, last year, there was a very limited, and I mean limited help in the city.
I'm here to need the help.
So, but I think, this year, I'm not sure what it is for the final count. But we can throw in a couple $100 to the cause.
I mean, I do want to just also acknowledge that this permit doesn't account for the additional porta potties and the additional trash cans. So it isn't actually the full scope of what the fee should be for the park rental. So the city is throwing money into this by not charging for the additional porta johns and additional dumpsters that have to be rented to.
But we paid for it.
Would you pay? Okay,
Yeah.
so that's separate. Okay, that was just to clarify. Well, because that was a discussion about another private event. I think that I think it's important to, take the personal side about it and realize that we're looking at private events versus private events versus private events. And, I think the city does show up in the way that it's supposed to for a park rental. And then looking at it as an event where the city could show up as like a different sponsor or, having booths or participating in different ways. I think those are potential different discussions of how the city could show up and participate in the event more, but we'll just leave it at that.
It's a great event.
It's a great event.
Get great participation. Everybody does a great job through the first 3/4 of the night, the day, and then the last 2/4 of the day, it's pretty limited. I mean,
So they do like donate a space for the fire department,
yeah,
they always have them charge us for, we're not gonna do the dunk tanks, but we'll have a table set up with, we're raffling off another cooler with speakers on it.
cool.
And, they don't charge it, they don't charge, Marshall sets up or a little library, they always.
I wanna have, oil change, that's perfect timing.
So just a little plug, and they never have, it's like the parade that,
So what's our hard cost on that? I mean, how many crew does it take to set up and clean up
Set up is,
of our crew?
It'll take all 3 of them.
all
Set up
three of
is
the
us.
street
They'll work
department
for 2 days.
and
You
all
the
three of
electrician, you pay for the electrician,
Usually
do the
3
full
or 4
setup.
my guys.
I'm in charge of the vendors and the food people. And they set themselves up after we help them, coordinate and stuff. So it really is.
And so our crew
We'll have a crew of 3.
for
On
2
the
days,
street.
1 day?
For the street department, it'll be for the 1 day for setting up the barriers.
Yep.
And then the next day, it'll be for, traffic control during the parade and
The
also
next day cleanup.
set up and then clean
Different
up
than the park.
the following. Then for my
Mhm.
staff, it'll be, the day of the parade, we'll have everybody out that's able, for pretty much the entire event. So rough cost on just my department alone is over $1,000.
Now, the fee doesn't begin to cover the cost.
Feeling very mixed about this.
That's me.
And Sean, you guys you pay Clear Creek directly for all the porta potties and the
Yeah.
garbages? That's
Yeah.
not on the city?
And let's see. That's what I said. No, and, but last year, I said before, Rick, she did come through on the next day, and helped out a lot, his staff. I can, everybody says they're gonna help. When it's all said and done, they may show up at the beginning of the day, but they're not there at the end of the day. Even it's for 15, 16 years. I tell you by experience, that's the case. Now, some days we have some participation from the staff, other days we don't. And regardless, we've gone through so many people in 15 years. Except for me, and me, and it's ongoing, I'm not gonna say anymore, but I can say now, what we do this, like I said before, we do a good thing, the city shows up, does their job, we can contribute some money to the city. If we have leftover money, okay? I mean, I don't want to say, we gotta come up with $2,000, for example. Well, that's a band, 2 bands. That's how. Plus, it's a city event, regardless of what you call it, might be private, it's a city event.
And from my discussions with Stephanie, who puts us on, there's one account of money that they take in from fees and different things that they put in. And that goes for paying for the bands, paying for different things to get set up, paying for the extra porta potties. Now, as a vendor, they do make other money for their business, which that is what it is. But as a city, this is something that's been going on long enough for, I don't know how many years, forever.
For us, it was Glenn's Grocery,
Yeah.
who took care of it.
Mm-hmm,
And
They
so
did it for years.
mm-hmm.
if we need to find a line item budget, so we are a full participant, so we have money set aside to support this event directly as part of the city, maybe that's something we need to look at. I think it's something, it shows us giving back to the community for a 2-day event, for them to get out, socialize, and keep it in Bellevue, instead of going up to Haley or Kitchens or Wagoners, whatever it is, and taking all the business up there.
Yeah.
So this is the only event that we really highlight to attract people to Bellevue, to show how great of a community that we have, show what type of people we have in our community and the businesses that support our community.
So then what are we gonna do moving forward to set aside money for other events? Like, for example, the Christmas tree lighting, that's a Bellevue event, but the library does all the work in that. So are we gonna do that too?
The
And then-
library is paid by the city, so it's the city event. I understand that, but we also aren't trying to pay for everything. I mean, they do outreach, they get sponsors, they find other people that are supporting it. Just like the library gets the coffee shop and other supporters. I'm just saying that the highlights of Bellevue Labor Day Parade.
You know, you're exactly right, you know, the tree lighting is an event that's paid for basically by the coffee shop and people. You know, and same as, we got people that help us and give us money to pay for stuff. It's no different, you know? And, only difference is we're a little more, heavy duty and the people we need to do stuff. You know,
But if we mark this as a city event, then I think then our city council should be involved in that event, and it shouldn't be a private separate event then, if that's going to be the case.
Before we've had a booth, there were people who come talk about issues. I have no problem with the booth that the city can be a part of and be there. But again, we have a booth for the fire department. We have a booth for the police department. We can go around and walk around and hang out with them and introduce ourselves to people at those. Do we really need a third booth?
That's not what I mean, like just involvement in like the coordination of the parade, because consistent feedback is like each year it's very different. So it's like,
no, it's not.
So are there parade entry fees?
No,
So anybody can,
Anybody can sign up for it. So last year when I helped out, as people started lining up, we gave them a number on a sign up sheet.
Yeah.
They put who they're with, then we collected them. So Stephanie and I could, talk about them as they came through and tell them the support that they gave to the event. There was no fees collected for the parade. It's just trying to get people in the community recognized.
Yeah.
And businesses recognized and highlight our the women of the valley, heritage court.
Yeah.
We try to find somebody that has a long-standing history in the community to be our grand marshal. Recognize them
For
for
that. We made outreach to John Peavy's family. We maybe have in his honor, we've done it before, the previous marshal. But yeah, we haven't heard back from him yet. Yeah, hopefully, it'd be a great person to have, the history and everything. He's been a great promoter of our valley.
well, I don't think the question is, should we have it or not have it? I think the question is, how do we move forward and still cover our costs somehow? That's really the piece that's giving me some heartburn.
Well, it sounds like to me, if I'm understanding this right, the $680 isn't gonna cover it anyway, so it's kind of like a moot point.
You know,
Am I understanding that right?
let's take this year and see where we're at with money, and if we have enough money, we'll, try to pay for the police, and, and the help of grounds crew.
Do a postponed payment
I don't,
plan?
yeah, I don't think, but I think Sean, I think the fees of the police and I think the additional fees of the grounds crew, that is all the ways in which the city's contributed. I don't think we're looking at the park fee. We're looking to ask this event to pay for all that, because the fee, we understand that our park fees don't cover everything that we need to be covering. It's obvious, but I think my only discussion is the precedent that we've been working on setting in terms of park fees and all of that. And I think that if we would like to, continue to acknowledge this as a city event, maybe there's a way in which moving forward, we have city involvement in supporting in the planning process or something like that. I know the history has changed how it's planned and who's involved and all of that. So
Realistically, like 2 people, Nick Clance, like Stephanie and myself. It's been for 2 years. We had another, the Johnsons, I think, did it. But if you want to, we're thinking too much about this. And then what I'm saying, we're thinking too much about it. If you want, payment, if we can provide the payment for the city, for the pay for the staff, we will do so. No, if we can't, we can't, but I know right now, things are looking good. You know, as far as, stuff goes, you know, if not, we put it in the budget, you know? Not a choice.
I do respect everything you're saying.
This has been going on for 40 years, 50 years.
Yes, I understand, but I also think it's a little bit of a conflict of interest that, you know, I know that you and Stephanie plan it, put it together and all that, but we're discussing point blank about park fees. And I know there's all these layers to it and there's all these history, but
So what are we gonna get to?
I personally think that we should charge the park fee
Okay.
of $680 and that's.
We'll pay nothing else.
Well, that, no, we're not asking anything else to be paid though, I don't think.
But then I think that he's saying the porta potties, the dumpster and the bands. Is that what you're
No.
saying?
No, he's talking about extra employees.
Extra employees, no, and that's what I'm saying is I haven't, unless that's what Shelley or the mayor or somebody else in the city, I haven't been privy to any of that discussion. I'm just looking at the agenda item that's in front of me that is asking if we want to waive the park fees, and that's what I am discussing right at the table. So, and I apologize if it's gone off the rails in another way, but that's exactly, I'm looking at the line item and the consideration of the fee, and I'm reading the agenda packet, and that is what I am referencing. So, and I'm open to anyone else who wants to.
Well, I
Make a
love the
comment on that.
idea of consistency. I think it is important, and we
So,
have tried to
We're
maintain
gonna
some
charge everybody
consistency.
out of fee.
We have been charging everybody.
No, we haven't.
Yeah, the 501c3, the only fee we've waived this year is the 501c3 Hunger Coalition
The
fee.
food, the Bloom.
The Bloom Food Truck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In the ERC, for the
Yeah.
Bellevue Clean Suite.
yeah, the 501c3s that, and, okay. Anything?
No, I like her with that. I mean, I'm mixed on the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, as a community member, I see this as a community event. I see this as a Bellevue event. So, you know, there's that side of it, and then there's the fact that, you know, we have an issue in regards to, you know, the consistency of collecting fees for things. And it's like, you know, there's, I'm trying to stay in the right lane.
Robin, what do you think?
I totally agree with John. I think it's a little bit of a gray area.
Yes.
And I mean, you know, you see people at the park that you only see once a year, and they look forward to this event every single year. And it's a great event. It is a community event. It does bring people together. You
I
know,
think the point is, we don't want everybody who's like, I'm gonna put on a community event coming
Right.
to us, trying to get the fees waived all the time.
But yeah,
Like,
with-
That's hands down what
For
we're.
50 years. Give me, you know.
No, John, we get that, we get the history, but we're just as a flat out, doesn't matter what the event is, just as a blanket statement. We don't want everybody trying to get their fees waived because it's a community event. So I think that's to your point, right?
Yeah, that's all I'm saying is the consistency of charging park fees. And I totally understand. I
Doesn't
love the
matter
event.
what the event
That's
is.
all I'm trying to do is set a precedent that we charge park fees. For events that use our parks. That's it. And I, unless 680 is gonna make or break the event functioning, I mean, just let us know, but 680 in the scheme of putting on the entire event, I hope would not deter the event from happening and just, you know. I think there's so many great things. There's so many ways in which you know, the event is monetized that I'm hoping that 680 is just part of the budget moving forward for the park rental fee. And that's, yeah. But I understand and I support, I mean, I understand. I'm just one opinion on a council of 6, so that's all.
Take a motion.
Like I'm gonna be the bad guy, but.
well, I mean,
Big debate.
is there any interest in splitting that fee? Is there any interest, straw poll? I mean, is there any interest in splitting us absorbing one day and not the other?
Love it.
That's on the table, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, did we do that for the baseball?
it's one of the options in the motions.
Similar?
Another community event.
Well, I would support, and I would move to have the city absorb 1 day and 1 day of that 2-day event fee.
What's the cost for having the marshals for both days?
Over $1,000, it sounds like.
It's, again, it's
I'm
not about
just-
all that, but yeah.
It's just a starting point.
What about the idea of including it into the budget
For next year.
next year?
I think we should think about that.
Yeah, I think for next
I
year.
mean, this is, I'm sorry, to repeat myself.
I know you're not. I'm talking about
This is going on.
not for 2025,
And the history,
Talking
the
2026.
history of
2026.
our Labor Day celebration is extensive, you know, and,
Just motion on.
We have a
Do you
motion.
wanna repeat your motion really quick to just clarify that, please?
I would move that the city of Bellevue absorb 1 day of the 2-day Labor Day celebration event to the cost of $300.
340.
Oh, 340, that they
They
do,
use the
they will
deposit.
get the deposit back.
Okay. $300.
I'm not seeing it.
I have a second,
Okay, John seconded.
so. Roll call, please, Michelle.
Councilmember Mahoney,
no,
President Giordano,
No.
Member Carrero,
Yes.
Member Ovindar. No. Member Leahy,
Yes.
Member Shea,
Yes.
you have a title, so 3 in favor, 2 opposed.
We don't see that very often here.
Go for it, Mayor.
I'm not sure I've never seen it.
been a while.
It's a big one.
The last time
It's big.
was not last time. Never.
I'm gonna say no.
Motion kills.
So let's put it in the agenda for next year for this event. This support, even though it's
Yeah, put
somebody
another motion
all
on the table.
retire and stuff, we retire.
No, I agree. We're just trying to
No,
follow the rules.
Voice and that.
Stay in the same lane.
You're such a,
And,
such a good backup.
you know, you know, it's fairly new, but we get 3,000 people, 4,000 people coming down.
It's an amazing event. I think the event should happen.
Okay,
and
or
we're
we
gonna
know
get-
a great event, what's the next motion?
Well, since that motion failed, and I don't want to leave here a failure, I would move. Do I withdraw that motion or just make a new? It
It's already
failed, it's
failed.
been voted on, it failed. All right, a new motion on the table to not waive the park fee for the Bellevue Labor Day celebration.
Well, I think that if somebody either makes a motion to waive the fee and it passes, or somebody does not, it fails. Like I said before, it's like an affirmative act versus a negative act. So somebody's asking to waive the fees, if you can't get a motion and a second on it, then it fails.
So it's already,
So the motion fails and we move on?
so yeah,
Okay,
you have to pay the whole park fee now.
So I would, that motion.
That's how that works.
It's there, it has to be there.
Right?
so
Didn't get it, didn't
So
get passed.
the
to
motion on the
reduce fee.
table was to reduce the fees by half,
It did
and that
not
motion
pass.
did not pass,
So now you pay the park fee.
is what we're being told.
If somebody makes another motion to waive all of the fees, we can do that, but absent that, then this fails.
So is there a motion to waive the fees? completely 100%?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Okay.
Hearing no second, motion fails. The park committee will pick up, or the Bellevue Labor Day committee will pick up the fee of $680. Moving on to consent agenda. Approval of council minutes for May 13th. Total claims, department reports. Any questions on any of the 3 items of the consent agenda?
As we said, it's-
Yeah.
So items B and C, item A has been removed from the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second,
All in favor or roll call? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Mahoney,
Yes.
Councilmember Odom,
Yes.
Councilmember Carrera,
Yeah.
Councilmember Leahy,
yes.
Councilmember Shea,
Yes.
President Bogania,
Yes.
All right, moving on to new business, item A, consideration, discussion, and possible recommendation for the city to proceed with advertising request invitation for bids for professional appraisal services, including but not limited to setting parameters on financial costs for 61.1 acres of city-owned property, Blaine County parcel number RPB 041700000B0, north of Cowcatcher Loop and east of Slaughterhouse Road. So background. As part of the Strayhorn annexation and the annexation agreement, the city was given this property. There was certain parameters set on it, and that includes the time the city has to make a decision on it. So that time has elapsed. We do still have a good agreement with the developer, and this parcel was intended to be, some sort of, it was supposed to be sold by the city to be done for something else. And whether that sale included, it put into deed restriction for open land, if it got land swap for something else, that was never in the parameters. So due to the fact that we agreed that we would do something with this in the next amount of years, we are in one of the best land sale economies that we've seen in this valley since the last 2 decades. I want to see what our opportunities are to do with this land. And then I want to take those opportunities and present them for formal discussion on which avenue we actually approve. I'm not just looking to give this away. I'm not looking to, I'm looking to see what the whole city benefit is and what its market value to the city of Bellevue is, or potential trade options, land agreements, or whatever. At this time, I know we have a couple people here to give public comment on it. I'm going to open it up for public comment, and then we'll have discussion on it with council. So is there any comment on the current agenda item? Mr. Blanchard?
Tom Blanchard, 33 Lower Broadford Road. I suspect some of the obligations to handle this within 9 years came through another agreement that I'm not privy to right now. But I can tell you the history of the original agreement that set the land aside and discussions associated with that, and a few other comments on that. The land was initially valued as part of the annexation agreement offset, and it was given a value of $1,500,000. And then since that time, prior city council had basically forgiven the developer those obligations. As a result, Bellevue was kind of left without the some of the benefits of that annexation agreement. But one of the original intents, there were 2 real critical items. One, we had basically destroyed the deer migration pattern that occurred coming out of Cottonwood Grove back over to where the tank is for the water system. That was a Fish and Game, I think, submitted a letter originally, and they were very concerned about losing that obligation. And then there's another valley on the, I believe would be the north side, my directions there aren't quite correct, but a spring comes out of. And there's another deer migration that comes out of there, so that in the initial approval of the Strayhorn subdivision, those two deer migrations were cut off and pushed further north. And the discussion in general was that 61 acres will be reserved in a natural space to handle some of that deer migration. Now, there was also a provision in there that the city would be not necessarily allowed, but they were thinking in terms of developing 3 estate lots at the end of I believe it's phase 4, I think he has 4 phases in there. At the end of his last phase, by the time he gets his sewer run up, that the city would divide themselves 3 parcels of land that would become estate parcels. And the estimate at that time was, given the inflation of about 20 years, and we're at about that point right now, was that those properties could easily sell in the $45,000 to $100,000 range, thus recouping that $1,500,000. And I think that's another option that you should look at, because, well, I would point out that, one, I really support what you're doing in terms of opening up the business zone, or considering opening up the business zone for community housing or housing in general here in Bellevue, and creating a more vibrant downtown. And what that does is create a denser downtown core, as opposed to creating some kind of a suburban sprawl that is going further and further out the canyon. That becomes harder and harder to provide services for, and more expensive. And so by giving that, by allowing an auction for that entire piece of property, I think what you're doing is contributing to that urban sprawl that we're all trying to avoid by creating that density. To some degree, the sale of this land for full subdivision out there, which with 61 acres would probably give you, in the 50 unit, if you look like phase 1 or phase 2, those are somewhat comparable. So you could be looking at 40 to 50 housing units out there that are going to be increasingly difficult and expensive for the city to serve. So there are reasons in terms of how the city wants to grow, that doing that kind of a large subdivision out there may not be the most appropriate thing, and certainly contrary to what you're trying to do in terms of creating density in the downtown core. So from that point of view, I think I would, let's say, encourage you to look at the city being its own developer as one of your options when doing anything or considering what you're going to do with it. Because I think you have the capacity to contract that service out. You will have the sewer connection up there eventually, provided at phase 4 or the last phase of the Strayhorn subdivision. And as a result, you can become your own, property managers as such, and sell it. And I think the achievable price of $1.5 million is not that far away, given what we're seeing in terms of acceleration of property. And at the same time, you can reserve a significant portion of that land for that deer migration corridor. That's, I think, would be. And well, let me point out the comprehensive plan, for instance, 2016 roughly, chapter 10 on parks and recreations. They have a table in there that locates parks and preserves located within the city. Strayhorn is listed as an outdoor recreation area with biking, hiking, birding, wildlife watching, dog walking as primary activities. Chapter 10, again, table 5. There was a survey of the community done in terms of the recreational needs of the community, and the natural preserve and natural open spaces were listed as the number 4 highest priority, given 30 options out there. So it was well supported at that time as being retained as a natural event, so that Bellevue ended not in an urban sprawl subdivision, but in a reserved natural area that those local subdivisions adjacent to it could enjoy. And I think we all recognize that one of the great benefits of living in Bellevue or living in the Wood River Valley is our immediate access to natural spaces like that. If you go to goals and objective actions, page 94, under actions for neighborhood policies, integrate natural resources and critical environmental protection when reviewing projects. And I think that's to some degree what you're faced with there. You have a very natural city dress step up there that has been abused significantly in the last 20 years, but in fact, it's quite recoverable. It is a highly used area in terms of people walking. Trails are used out there. To me, it's always been a favorite place to go. I think a lot of people support that. So I would say a pre-lot estate option is something that is very credible, will get you the money that was originally intended association with the original negotiations. I think my great regret is that that didn't get memorialized in the language. But that was certainly the basis of the discussion when that project was accepted by the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Ms. Patrick.
Hi, Jeff Patrick. Hi, Tom.
Jeff.
You know, sort of like the last discussion, you know, we were talking about, you're looking at what the issue is that you're having to consider tonight. And what Tom said is, you know, wonderful points, but off point to what the discussion is tonight. Tonight is called the comp plan. You know, every 5 or 10 years, you would reevaluate your comp plan. Talk about your budget or your assets. Every, you know, whatever period of time, reevaluate what that asset is worth. This is about a piece of property that was appraised in 2008, so it's an asset, 15 years ago. And at that time, it actually was in the county, so the value was based on R5, so 1.5 was correct. But, you know, not all 60-acre parcels are the same. You can go down to the Bellevue Triangle, you can find a 60-acre parcel, but if it's 20-acre zoning or 40-acre zoning, it's not going to command the price that that parcel did at that time. Now here we are, where that parcel is in the city as transitional zone, which, from what I understand, defaults to general residential, or it could even be some light industrial business, which of course that's not even on the table. But it does default to general residential. So the purpose of the appraisal is not to deal with all the things that Tom is suggesting. It's simply to understand what the value of your asset is today, and then in future meetings, decide what you want to do with it, how you want to monetize it. So there's a number of different appraisals that can be done, and you know, I want to offer this as an explanation when you're considering these things. The appraisals generally that we have done for our projects, you know, they're 100 pages long. You know, they establish a value. You can basically get and that's usually for bank purposes, and you know, they talk about history and on and on. That's not really what you need. You really need a third party, independent party, for your own future discussions and discussions with others. It gives you a range of value. And a range of value appraisal is much less expensive. It gives you the numbers that you need to work with. It gives you all the comps, but it just doesn't go so far as to put it into a very, very complex document that you don't need. So, you know, you don't need to spend $10,000 for something that maybe could cost $2,500. I've talked to a number of appraisers. I mean, I think I know what the city could spend. And I think there's even a local appraiser who would look very kindly at just being supportive to your community. And probably if you gave him the opportunity to do it, you know, you might surprise yourself. But getting back to this discussion, this is about, do you want to have an appraisal by an independent party to find out what the value of a very big asset of yours is that could come into play to help the city, or not? And I think you're, you know, the responsible thing is you have to go do it. So that's that.
Thank you, Jeff. Any comments from Zoom? Okay, at this time I'll close public comment. I appreciate both comments there, but we are talking about the opportunity of just seeing what the value of the property is. I'm not talking about selling it right now. I'm not talking about whatever we have to do with it. I think there's plenty of opportunity. I think there's ways that if we know what the value is, we can work with future developers and work with our P and Z and land trade possibilities. So we keep that as an open area, but somebody else buys it, feeds it back to the Wood River Land Trust and keeps it as an open area, but then they get higher density in their new development, where it might be more appropriate to have density and housing in there. I think there's a lot of ways we can play with this, but if we know what a range of value is, then we can start having public comment on what's the best way to use it.
Excuse me for interrupting that. I want to give you an example of what he's talking about. Many years ago, the county basically took zoning away from, or wanted to take zoning away from the Bellevue Triangle. To compensate the people they were taking the zoning from, they had TDRs. The TDRs could be purchased by someone in specific areas for more dense development. So for instance, let's say there's an appraisal as general residential, which that's what that should be, is appraised at, and it creates 100 units valued at X. They carry a paper value. So if you had a development or a parcel in town and they were asking for 16 units and you only wanted to give them 12, you could actually create an in lieu fee in which they buy some of the density away. And if you know, it's like a piggy bank. If you kept doing that, in time, you could end up with that being open space, but you would monetize and create a density in areas within your city that you might not otherwise have done. So, you know, that's the next step to thinking about, you have a value into what Chris was talking about. Sorry for the interruption.
No, that's fine. So this is the reason I'm bringing it up, just so we get a range of evaluation, so we understand what we're working with, so we can then move forward with developing a plan that works for the city, financial needs, for the community, for our recreational needs, whatever.
I think this is a smart move. I think it's necessary because it is 2024, and I think that I'm hoping to see that the valuation that comes back is.
The time is right.
Yes, yeah, the time is right, and I think the appraisal's very important, and I echo what Mr. Paffley said, that I think that the type of appraisal will be important, so we're not spending a ton of money to just understand the value of this property, and then I look forward to the discussions of the possibilities, what we can do with it once we understand the value of the monetization of the property for the city. I think that, you know, we're going through budget discussions, we're looking at how do we solve a lot of these debt issues, and we're sitting on solutions, and I appreciate the mayor bringing this to the table so that we can start understanding the value that we're sitting on.
And so Rick, is the correct process then to advertise this for bids? I seem to recall.
Well, if you get a limit, I mean, if anything under $50,000, you have to use the best interest of the city in that, but maybe it would be good to put out the bids or RFPs or whatever. Bids on this or for the consultant. But there's a formal process to declare this surplus real property, and that's different than just.
Right, we're not selling the property, we're just looking for somebody to come in and give us a valuation of its worth. And so if the council wants to set a limit on how much money we spend on that, I'm 100% behind that. I don't think we need to spend $50,000 to find out that we have $150,000 worth of property. I think if we can spend $25,000, then we find out we can, if we do it right, we can get 2.5 million.
Yeah.
So I just want to see what our range of worth is for it.
I think we can get what he's talking about done well under 10 grand.
Yeah, let's just put a not to exceed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking 5, but I was thinking not to exceed 5, but yeah.
Yeah, he's already, yeah.
Just sharing.
Yeah, no, I think that
So
that's great.
reasonable.
Let's just put some parameters on the financial spend and.
So I would need a motion, but I think we're talking a $5,000 limit.
Okay, yeah. Let me take a crack at it. I move for the city of Bellevue to proceed with advertising and or requesting an invitation to bid for professional appraisal services. Not to exceed expenditure of $5,000 for the 61 acres of city-owned property, specifically Blaine County parcel number RPB 0417000000B0.
Second.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question? What is the difference in spending up to 5,000 for this? Versus when we make decisions all day long under 50,000, as Rick said? Why are we doing?
I don't
We don't
wanna
wanna get
spend
into
more
our
than that.
engineering fees where we say we don't wanna spend over 10,000, like we've done down with Salt Lake. And then all of a sudden we get billed $25,000.
No, I understand the limit, but we've already got a potential bid at like 2,500 to do it. Why do we need to seek multiple bids for something for so little money? We do car repairs for 3,000, that's my question, is why do we need to bid it?
I wanna make sure that we have the ability to choose more than one person to come give us an evaluation.
Yeah, well, we could definitely do that.
And I don't see this as I'm just asking basically for $5,000 so we can get an estimate. Who does it, how it happens, how we go out for it. I don't think we need to put a formal RFP out there.
Okay.
We can say, we know these 3 people can do it. It meets, it's under our limit.
Okay.
But I just wanna make sure that it's known that we are gonna be getting an appraisal on it. If there's somebody that is interested in coming to give us an appraisal on it and they wanna say that's gonna cost us this much, they have an opportunity to do that.
And as a council, we're just saying we don't want to spend more than $5,000 on it.
I was just hearing bid language.
Bids for a professional, but I didn't say RFP.
So I had a motion and a second. I get a roll call, please.
Councilmember.
Yes.
Councilmember Ovina. Yes. Councilmember Mahoney.
Yep.
Councilmember Bonnie.
Yes.
Member Leahy.
Yes.
Member Gray.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Item B, consideration of resolution number 2384, resolution relating to surplus personal property. Is this the one that's being pulled?
No, it shouldn't be. I sent something to Michelle regarding I didn't know quite what was going on with the 61 acres.
Okay.
I gave her the procedure for declaring surplus real property.
So this is retaining to, so let me finish this. Relating to surplus property, declaring certain personal property of the city to be surplus, authorizing and directing the disposal of surplus property and providing an effective date. So this is the sheriff's, or sorry, the marshal's, it was a code enforcement vehicle. It has some significant issues and ghosts that we've tried to get it repaired. We're just gonna be dumping more money into it than it's worth, and we wanna get rid of it.
Just chasing down the ghost and cost us money, and I don't wanna spend any more if at all possible. I'd like to take it down to the auction site that we used previously.
That was gonna be my question. Are we just like ditching it or are we trying to sell it?
No, we're gonna auction.
Okay,
I
great.
mean, it runs,
It'll be good for someone else.
it runs, as a personal vehicle, I would probably take it. As a cop car that I need to go fire it up at any given time and not wait 3 minutes for it to decide, hey, now we can go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Understandable.
Well, let's sell it.
I'm for it.
That sounds like a motion.
I move to approve resolution 2384, a resolution of the city of Bellevue, Idaho, relating to surplus personal property, declaring certain personal property of the city to be surplus, authorizing and directing the disposal of the surplus property and providing an effective date.
Second.
And just so y'all know, you're all, you're allowed to bid on that.
Oh, shucks.
Roll call, please, Michelle.
President Bonnie.
Yes.
Yes.
Member Leahy.
Yes.
Member Ovina.
Yes.
Yes.
Mahoney.
All right, thank you. All right, we're at 6:30. Does anybody need a quick break for anything, or can we move on to the budget workshop?
There's snacks back there if anybody needs sustenance. It's on the little counter. And cupcakes.
All right, how about later?
All right, you want to kick us off, Shelley, with the budget?
Yes, if you take your packet with the long sheet, the one you've been looking at every week, your long sheet. That is the summary of the budgets. They have changed minorly, very minorly from the last time we looked at them, but this is all balanced. And 5 of our actual departments in our general fund are budgeted less than they were last year. The summary for the general fund is actually a 2.35 increase overall for the general fund budget, which is really, really, really good. And if you take the water fund is down 7% without the grant. If you take the grant out of the picture, the total budget overall is down 6%. So that's why I have a couple different figures in there because so we can compare. Any questions on this summary, what it means? So basically, general fund, we're looking at $2,386,470. Water fund, we're looking at $3,929,140.75. That's with a $3.3 million grant. And wastewater, we're looking at $1,449,804. No questions? Okay, if we turn to the next page, general fund revenues. I have them broken down and in fact showing the percentage of income. This is, again, is general fund. How they're broken down by account. So if you have any interest in knowing, this is all of the departments put together by account. We are cutting carryover in half over what it was last year. I could not get it done without using some carryover. I'm sorry. I tried. Any questions on how that revenue breaks down? You'll see the bottom line. There's a comparison to fiscal 23 actuals, fiscal 23 budget, and our budget for the current year that we're in, fiscal 24. The next 2 pages are operating expenses broken down for the general fund by department and account. So you can see it goes across and you can see the totals. So if you turn to page 2 of that expense budget, you'll see the total operating expenses by department. And then you'll see below that, the whole capital expenses. So operating is $664,826 for the entire general fund, and capital is $214,804.46. That completes that packet. The next one is how you're used to seeing your reports. I've already plugged these numbers in my QuickBooks. So the first one is your general fund budget overview, like you're used to looking at the report. That's the whole general fund right there. So total income of 2,386,470. Payroll 1.506,828.60. Operating 664,836.94. capital 214,804.46 for the total of 238,6470. Behind that, I have each department broken down. As we've gone through, there's been minor changes. Health insurance, we're probably gonna have to change our primary plan on that because our main plan went up 28%.
Oh my gosh.
I had it in the budget at a 5% increase, so I had to rework numbers. That's why this all changed. But there are several plans we can adjust to that will be close to what, so I just put in here based on those plans generally, yeah.
Wow.
That's a lot of numbers. Any questions?
Was that car that you're getting rid of? Was that leased or was that already paid for?
It was already paid for.
Okay.
So if there's no questions on general fund at all, go back through your pages there, they're in the order alphabetically to water fund. Because I didn't do breakdowns because they're single accounts, the water fund. How it breaks down is total income of $3,929,141. That includes that $3.3 million grant. Payroll of $123,926. That is an apprentice, and in the water fund, it's 40% of a water wastewater manager. So that's putting 2 staff people now into water that we didn't have this year. Operating expenses of $400,575. Capital expenditures of $3,404,640 with that grant, for the total of $3,929,141. Am I moving too fast?
No, I think we've seen enough of this.
I like this format,
Well, that's why I did this, because you're used to seeing this. So wastewater. The wastewater has total income of $1,449,804,000. And that is with a little carryover. But the carryover pretty much goes toward capital expense. So payroll, again, it's 60% of a manager and an apprentice for $148,840 for payroll. Operating expenses of $612,000. Capital expenditures of $688,947. So you'll see that carryover goes into that 300 in construction and improvement. For a total of $1,449,804.
Ask you that loan debt that we're servicing, that 335.
Yeah,
So that's what we're paying for next year to
Yes.
service that debt.
yes. Well, there's interest too. That's the actual loan amount. There's interest.
And there's interest in here as well.
Yes.
Okay.
So in summary on the wastewater, the fees cover operating, payroll, and that debt service. They
Okay.
cover that. And some toward capital.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I have a question on the buildings and grounds. I got a bid for the driveway in the back. It passes, can I go ahead and get him on the books for October so he can get that asphalt? You know, and we can talk to me later or whatever, but you know, the asphalt is real tight on, especially little jobs, you know, we're doing major streets that we'll do, but, or we can wait till spring. Too. It doesn't,
If this passes and we can get it done, I'd rather do it now and make sure that it's thin, it's not too cold and everything, the conditions are right, so we do get the best work done. But it's gonna make plowing it easier, it's gonna make everything on your side easier for response, if we have it done instead of waiting until spring. And that's what we're supposed to be doing with this, so.
August 12th. That's the date.
Yeah.
Does that work?
yeah, that's plenty of time. Cause he was just wanting to put it in the pool, and if it does get cold this fall or weird, then we just change.
How far off are we for the water fund to do kind of what the what wastewater
It's
does
about $46,000 short.
of balancing
Yeah.
what we bring in? Okay, we're getting there though.
This is a step in the right direction.
Okay,
We're, baby step here.
yeah,
Yeah, so next year
yeah,
should
we're
be even
close to
better.
it sustaining.
Yeah.
Okay,
And that's with the 4 point whatever increase, correct? That we haven't taken for,
years, yeah.
We took it last year,
right,
we'll take it this year, and that's just getting us back up to operating costs. What comes in, what goes out, so
Yeah.
the 4.9%, and you gotta look at the numbers too. 4.9% for wastewater and 4.9% for water doesn't equal a 9.8% increase. If you put the math together, if it's it's $125 monthly for both of them. If you times that by 4.9%, it's $131.13. If you break them up at $35 at 4.9%, you get $36.72, and at $90, you get $94.41, for a total of, imagine this, $131.13. If you take the whole 25 and you times it by 9.87%, you're at $137.25%, or $25. So this is a 4.9 across the board. It isn't a combined 9.8 revenue increase.
I appreciate all the work on this and I look forward to getting the water fund to balance out like the wastewater does here soon.
I
So
mean,
that's the goal.
we're looking at the increase in cost of personnel. I mean, we used to be able to hire an apprentice or a entry-level person for $17 an hour. We can't get anybody to give a knock on the door for under $25 an hour right now. And then you gotta look at all the cost of just materials that have increased, supplies, supply challenges that have increased. So this is just trying to keep up with market rates or our market costs to do business and keep the services going.
So are we at the point where we need to approve?
Do we have to go to that public comment or?
No, the public hearing is the 12th.
Okay.
Okay,
So you need to approve moving forward with this for the public hearing.
As our tentative budget,
Yes. As a proposed budget.
so after we set that number, nothing changes, nothing can change, correct?
It can go down.
It can go down, but it cannot go up.
Yeah.
I know that one well. I'm sorry, Eve.
well, again, you can point out that the public's here, and hasn't been in years and years.
I said public.
He's been here. He's been here.
I mean, in the past, there hasn't been. How's they doing? And maybe they'll show up at the public comment.
Maybe.
Yeah, the borough notice will be in this week's paper. And I have to send all of this, because these numbers go to the paper by Friday. My chart has to go to them by Friday. So that's why this needs to be it. Yeah,
tentative budget,
Proposed.
bottom line, where's that number?
This page. General. Water, sewer, total.
7.
Yep.
Nice realistic budget.
I hope so.
So also understand that that's 7 and that 3 million in water. That 3 million is in grants and we're not gonna most likely spend it all in this next year because we're gonna go into we're doing the engineering design work and getting everything prepped. We may break ground, but that number throws our whole budget off.
Yeah.
And
So-
it'll carry forward.
We don't have to, if we don't spend it all in a year, it can carry on,
Yeah.
correct?
But
Yeah.
if we don't have it there and we get to a point where we need it, I mean, it's
Yeah,
not
so it
there.
has
We,
to be
we
there.
have to account for it, but this isn't, it's not really part of our budget. I mean, it's something we have to account for, but it's something that will be used over probably at least the next year and a half to 2 budgets. And it just throws that big number off. So we really don't have a $7.7 million.
This number right here.
It has a $4.3
We're actually.
million.
So without that, you know,
Yeah,
we're
that's
at like
why
a
I put those.
4.4.
Yeah,
So this is the number that we'd be approving.
yeah, including that grant, yes.
And that's included in this number though.
Mhm.
And when does that grant cycle like hit? When does is it at the beginning of the budget
I
year?
have no idea.
It should be available on the fiscal year.
Okay, great.
That for total.
Okay,
Looking at you.
I see that. Then I would move to approve the City of Bellevue FY 25 tentative budget in the amount of $7,765,415.
Second. Oh, that was Sean. Nope, that was Sean.
A roll call, please.
Councilmember Shay,
Aye.
Betty,
Yes.
Councilmember Farrell,
Yes.
Councilmember Overlap.
Yes.
President Bogdan,
Yes.
Councilmember Mahoney.
Yep.
All right, thank you, everyone. Good job on the budget this year. I think we've been as transparent.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, Shelley.
The best. Truthfully, I've been doing this a long time. This is, it's Dan and, that's sure. And, this is one of the best budget I ever know.
Not one special meeting. And I mean, we've had
4
major.
special meetings in 4 nights
Yeah,
in a row.
it was like,
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
Ugly. I would go home and wanna
And it depends,
start drinking.
yeah.
I would
Can't
love
do
to
that.
start.
It depends on the person, but the first person we had to deal with back when I first started was Dee. Dee's, I don't know if she's still alive, but she had her own stack of papers, about everything. No one else knew about it.
Oh.
She did everything herself. And there's no one, nothing. No accountability, it was just what she did, came up with.
And what she came up with, that's what, she was mom and dad's checkbook and she gave you your allowance and that was it.
All right.
Wonderful.
Make the meeting. We need one thing.
I moved it to the
Is there a
Second,
All in favor?
Yes.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Chris, you got a minute?
Yes, sir.
The only time I went over my budget as Dee was the clerk. I never lived the end of